2022 was a brutal year for the stock market. A ton of stocks, from small cap stocks to large cap stocks and a bunch of different industries, got absolutely clobbered. Even the powerhouse companies like Apple, Tesla, Amazon, and many others absolutely got crushed this year. Even bonds had their worst year in a long time. But somehow there was one group of individuals who somehow managed to absolutely crush the stock market this year, and that is none other than the U.S. Congress. So basically, politicians crushed the stock market this year. We have an awesome video today. We're going to take a deep dive into how they managed to have somewhat decent returns in a time where everything else is crashing. I want to give a huge shout out to Unusual Whales for putting all of this data together. It is awesome. So huge shout out to Unusual Whales, but let's get right into it. So basically, whether you're looking at Republicans or Democrats, they outperform the stock market in a major way. The stock market, or SPY, was down around 18.2% in 2022. A lot of people try and beat the market each year. So let's say the market is down 18%. Even if you lose money, let's say you lose 5%, you still crush the market. And that's actually a really good thing to be proud of, because a lot of hedge funds can't even outperform the stock market. Republicans and Democrats, though, should actually start their own hedge fund, because their returns are insane and they're very suspiciously consistent, to say the least. But anyways, so we'll start with Democrats. They lost on average 1.76% in 2022, which just crushed the 18.2% loss from the SPY. But Republicans actually came out on top this year with an average return of 0.38%. So both parties are definitely guilty in this situation. They just absolutely crushed the stock market in an insane way. And there were some pretty big hitters on both sides. Patrick Fallon had a 51.6% return in 2022, which is mind-blowing. Then we had Debbie Schultz with a 50.8% return. Republicans are in red, Democrats are in blue. But what's very, very interesting is, not only how all of these politicians can, have such insane returns even in a year where the market just got clobbered, but there's one politician, Nancy Pelosi, who actually has a decent track record of just crushing the market no matter what it does. And for some reason, Nancy Pelosi was one of the worst performing members of Congress this year, actually, which is very, very surprising. So she actually lost around 20% this year. She had a lot of deep in the money call options that she was trading, and they did not end up working too well. If we zoom out a little bit right here, we can see she did take some pretty decent losses with Roblox, Netflix, Meta, Google, Tesla. She definitely had some pretty heavy losses. And what's very interesting and kind of suspicious is if we go back to this tweet by Unusual Whales in early 2022, there's just a nice little timeline of Nancy Pelosi's you could say strategy when it comes to insider trading and how she manages it with the public. So we can see on December 15th of 2021, Nancy Pelosi says basically Congress should be able to trade as it is a free market, right? Congress should be able to trade. Stop trying to stop my money printer, right? Then January 10th of 2022, Unusual Whales post their report going into details with Congress trades. This is actually what we're going to be talking about today, but we're going to be looking at the 2022 report, which is awesome. And then on January 12th of 2022, senators drafted a bill to ban Congress from trading, right? Congress references a report on January 13th. And then out of nowhere, on January 21st of 2022, Nancy Pelosi wants to retire as the top, you could say, House Democrat. And then, after she already announces that, now she's open to banning Congress trading. So it's interesting how both, Republicans and Democrats have their way of, using the position they're in to significantly benefit themselves on the financial side, especially in the stock market and when it comes to investing. So that's very interesting. And another thing is, it's not like these members of Congress are trading with, $1,000 accounts. they're trading some serious coin. Like it's actually kind of scary. But anyways, we could see in 2022. There was around $125 million of disclosed values for their trades by Congress for both Republicans and Democrats. So that was very interesting. It looks like Republicans had around twice as much dollar volume going to their trades compared to Democrats in 2022, and it also looks that way for 2021 as well. So that was very interesting. But beside the fact of these big money suspicious trades, some of these members of Congress are doing some pretty unethical and shady things in the sense of we have Thomas Carper, who actually dropped $110,000 into a fund, HDGE, that literally shorts the U.S. economy. Yes, literally. He put $110,000 to short the U.S. economy, but he's also on the Senate Finance Committee. So it's like, that's kind of suspicious, and it's definitely a questionable thing to do, to say the least. But there have been many, many examples of, you could say, shady trades that have happened this year, not only with Thomas Carper, but many other members of Congress. What was also interesting, and I wouldn't call this one as shady, but we actually had Alan Lowenthal put around $50 million. Yes, $50 million into some U.S. Treasuries at around a 4.57% interest rate. And this happened on November 8th, which was timed basically perfectly. Oops, let me go USO1Y. Basically, rates have exploded this year. So we could see like the 1-year Treasury yield from, let's say, the start of 2022 was yielding 0.39%. And then it popped all the way up and it peaked around like 4.8%. He put around $50 million into U.S. Treasury bonds on November 8th, which was literally like a day away from the top. So, good trade, I guess. But even if we scroll down a little bit more, what we could also see is that we had Mark Green, who was trading millions of dollars worth of oil and gas stocks right before Russia invaded Ukraine, and then after Russia invaded Ukraine and oil and gas started to pop up in a major way, he ended up doing a lot of selling with these oil and gas stocks as well later in 2022. So, that was definitely a pretty, I guess you could say, good trade there. But even another thing is that there are just more examples than I can even count when it comes to these, what you could call unusual trades. Some of the most popular and most bought stocks for 2022 from Congress was actually Apple, Google, Disney, Tesla, and Nvidia, which I actually thought was pretty interesting, as some of these stocks got hit really, really hard. So, I thought that was actually very interesting. Even if we scroll down, some of the stocks that were sold the most were actually Visa, Nvidia, ExxonMobil, Eli Lilly, and Microsoft. Out of these five, the one that I thought was the most interesting was ExxonMobil. We actually have these members of Congress actually selling oil stocks in a time where, a lot of other people are starting to buy in, especially when we have like ExxonMobil go from lows of like $30 a share all the way up to highs of almost $115 a share over the course of a couple years. It is interesting to see how these people are definitely dumping some of their positions at least. So I definitely thought that was interesting. And even if we look at some of the best trades for 2022, this is where it gets really fun. So we could see on April 19th, we had Josh Gottheimer purchasing CCXI, and then he sold it on August 11th for around a 140% gain. And this is just one of the many, many trades that will really just make your jaw drop. Like whether we're looking at 140% gains on CCXI or a 60% gain off of that Twitter setup, with Elon buying Twitter out. That was crazy. But there are just many, many other stocks. Like, we could see this APEN trade that happened in October that is currently up 497%, which Tom Malinowski bought in October. So, this is just one of many stocks that have truly exploded. And what's also even more interesting and slightly concerning is, of course, 2020 was a crazy year on many different fronts. But when Russia invaded Ukraine, that also brought a lot of suspicious activity, especially relative to some of these defense stocks. If we look at companies like NOC, or, which is Northrop Grumman, or RTX, which is Raytheon, or LMT with Lockheed Martin, a lot of these stocks are basically at highs or very close to them, and they've been running up nonstop over the course of the past couple years, and they especially popped up when Russia started to invade Ukraine. And given how many billions and billions of dollars that is being sent to Ukraine, and how much action the defense industry is seeing from that catalyst, it was very suspicious to see multiple Democrats and Republicans load up on stocks like RTX, NOC, LHX, and LMT. There were many members of Congress in both parties who did buy into these defense stocks, but it's very interesting to see how, we'll see, let's say a couple members of Congress, put a lot of money into a specific stock, and then a couple weeks later, a couple months later, you have a pretty jaw-dropping or significant catalyst that coincidentally benefits said stocks. So overall, very, very suspicious and slightly concerning. And then what's also probably the most concerning, or not even the most concerning, but kind of angering, what makes me mad at least, is basically when these members of Congress make trades, they're supposed to disclose it within 45 days of actually making that trade so the public can know, right? And, sometimes if they disclose it, and if they disclose it early enough and the stock didn't move enough, maybe the public can follow their trades and maybe make some money too. But that is not necessarily the case. There have been multiple instances of late disclosures where the public has not even been notified in like a timely manner about the trades that these members of Congress are making. There were 10 House representatives that filed late disclosures in 2022, and some of these were pretty bad. So Chris Jacobs had 80 late trades ranging between 53 and 70 days late. That's insane. And then it gets even worse where we have Madison Cawthorn, who had 22 late trades, some of which were 331 days late. Like, that's ridiculous. So, when we have these late trades, it's just, it doesn't, like the system is currently set up where even though the disclosures are set to, happen 45 days later in the worst case scenario, like the public isn't even getting access to that information, which is definitely not a good thing, and it definitely angers me. It's just these members of Congress don't have enough of an incentive to, follow and play by the rules, you can say, because they're just not being held accountable. So that was definitely pretty, I guess you could say, like, angering, I guess you could say. But then where it gets even worse is right here. So we could see, earlier I talked about how we had a couple members of Congress with some very suspicious trades and actually profiting by the U.S. economy falling. There have been multiple instances of this, like I said. Alan Lowenthal also traded PSQ, which is another way to short the economy overall, and he actually made a decent amount of money doing that. If we look deeper into the trade, we could see that he bought PSQ on January 14th for $11.41 and sold, just a couple weeks later for $12.60 and made around a 10% gain, shorting the U.S. economy. He is currently a member of Congress, and he's making money shorting the U.S. economy. Does anyone see a problem with that? There have been multiple other instances as well. Alan Lowenthal also has some amazing timing with PSQ, SH, and SPY. The red dots represent where he buys. And then the blue dots represent where he sells. We can see, he had multiple purchases and sales on PSQ in 2021, but he also had some awesome trades in 2022 where he made a good amount of money doing that, you could say. He also had some awesome trades on SH, and he also perfectly timed the bottom with SPY at the end of during the 2020 COVID crash. So that was very interesting in that sense. And like I said, these are just a couple minor trades that I'm highlighting right now. There have been more suspicious or unusual trades that I've read throughout this 100-page report than I can even cover in the entire video. It really is jaw-dropping, and I'm going to include access to this report in the description down below. Huge shout out to Unusual Whales, but I just want to bring attention to this because the trades that are happening by members of Congress are so, you could say, suspicious or unusual, but at the same time, very questionable in the sense of like, why do we have members of Congress, active members of Congress, making tons of money shorting the economy? Like, I think there's a huge problem in that sense, let alone all the other suspicious trades and how they're just crushing the market year after year after year. So that's crazy. A lot of the buying activity throughout 2022 was focused in stocks, but they have also traded a decent amount of like treasury bonds and municipal bonds and all that good stuff. So that's interesting. What's good is that while most of the money is being put into publicly traded companies, it does make it a little bit easier for like the public to follow along with. If you're looking to follow like a specific member of Congress, I'm going to show you a way I like to track them. If you go to the website clerk.house.gov and you press this disclosures button at the top right here, and you go to financial disclosure reports, and then you go to search reports, you can actually search like any candidate that you want. So let's say I type in Pelosi, and then let's just say for simplicity purposes, I'll just do filing year 2022, and I press search. You can get access to like all of her disclosures in this sense, and you can see basically what she's trading, how much she's trading, and the date, and just any other information. So feel free to use this website for that. It's good for like searching specific trades by specific members of Congress, so it's pretty easy as well. But overall, like I read this report by Unusual Whales, and it was like, I was just like, I was shocked, but I wasn't shocked. You know what I mean? Like some of these trades are so ballsy and out there with how coincidental they are, that I'm surprised they don't have more pressure to stop doing these crazy trades. Where they're not being done in a I guess you could say ethical way. Like they're using insider information and they're just crushing the market. Basically, like even hedge funds aren't even having the returns that members of Congress are. And a lot of these members of Congress don't necessarily come from, stock market backgrounds either, yet they just crush the market year after year after year. So, like I said, if you guys want to learn more about this whole situation, check out that first link in the description and the comments down below. Unusual Whales did an amazing job with this. Absolutely awesome job. And then also make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. I post brand new videos every single day, and in every single nightly video, I cover big money trades from insiders at companies, like literally $1 million trades every single day. And a lot of these end up exploding, whether we're looking at WBD, IQ, or W. Like there's so many instances where you'll see, whether it's a CEO of a company or a hedge fund or just like any big money trader load up on a stock, and then coincidentally a couple days later or a couple weeks later or a couple months later, the stock explodes off some crazy news. So make sure to subscribe if you're new. If you do subscribe, you'll see my videos recommended to you more often. Besides that, I hope you guys love the video, and let's crush 2023.